Yeah, so the other question I had, which I didn't get a response from the consultant, was DHHL takes ownership of this property. What happens to the requirement for the blood quantum? What happens to those people that are now in that units that don't meet the eligibility requirements for DHHL housing?
They can stay in such time as until they're relocated in an orderly process, so they don't have to be pushed out immediately. And actually, you get that flexibility. You know, we're using NAHASDA funds, but those funds, as long as the NAHASDA plan of use of those funds provides the time frame of 18 months to 24 months to move people along, then that's what is allowed to happen.
So the requirement, the DHHL requirement, is not applicable in those cases?
Because of the asset is being acquired with folks living there.
I'm talking about after acquisition.
Because the asset has folks living there and there's rental agreements in place already, but everything has to be honored. So the blood quantum component takes hold on the new leases as people move in after the other people have.
But to be clear, we're going to work through this transition period where the existing tenants over some period of time are moving out as their leases expire. But to be real clear, we are required to honor the blood quantum requirements under the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act. Yeah.
That's
So if there are existing Native Hawaiian tenants who aren't of that blood quantum and are not on our Kauai Island wait list, they will not be eligible for renewal.
but they are safe for the duration
For the remainder of their
of their
current
current
existing lease, yes.
But the question is, how far will 1.9 million go? Is it because the rental prices are so high here, $6,000, $7,000 a month, you gotta pay the differential from what they're currently paying, right?
Yeah, it's a rent differential on what they're currently paying compared to the market analysis of what we find that is available when we do the market analysis, which will happen closer to the time we do the notice of eligibility. So it'll be current with the time we give them their eligibility notices.
Right, so is 1.9 million in your estimation enough? That's, or is it gonna, I just, my math says we're gonna have a problem with that because of the rental rates. And I noticed on your spreadsheet, you had some off-island properties in Waianae, and I mean, I'm not sure how that works. I mean, I think you're gonna pay somebody to move to another island?
Yes, there was expression of interest to relocate to alternate locations across the island, so our plan has to reflect that feedback. So we have to look at, you know, moving them to the mainland, moving them to other islands, keeping them here, because they can go where they want to go. And so it's really up to them. We can't control or dictate where they move to. We just have to support them in the process.
So you feel 1.9 is gonna adequately compensate all of these families in the relocation program?
Yes, and I mean, yes, and this number's been vetted, it's been reviewed by HUD, it's been reviewed by our consultants. We've had market analysis from SMS and Ricky Cassidy, both two different separate teams to analyze this. So I think the numbers, as good as a budget can be for what it is, we think it's conservative and it does what it should do to provide everybody an appropriate amount of money to relocate. If we were trying to do this all at one time in a 30 to 60 day period, I don't think it would be sufficient because of the pressure you would create in the market. But because it's 3 units a month, 4 units a month, slow, I think it's totally manageable.
How long are your leases right now? How long are the leases right now at Waipouli?
They range from 12 months to 1 month to month.
So, again, I'm going back to the Hawaiian beneficiary issue. Some of these leases, and I don't have the numbers, maybe you guys have the numbers, but how many leases are expected to expire in the next year that are of tenants that don't meet the DHHL requirements? You're saying 3 a month, but you could have 10 or 8 or 12 expire that don't meet the DHHL qualifications. You're not gonna be able to keep them in there, right? I mean, that's a DHHL
We
question.
have, the plan has and provides for the time frame necessary to relocate people when units are available over 18 months, could be extended up to 24 months. So we have the time available that doesn't, there's no gun to anyone's head per se, you know, but you have to do your best efforts and march down this process to relocate people. But we've provided for plenty of time and reasonableness so that it's not this pressure moment. And then if you have a lease that runs out, you know, till October of next year, for this year, for instance, if you found an ideal site and our team, Melissa, found an ideal opportunity, you don't have to stay. You could get the check early, you can
Right.
move in June, you can move in July. It's not like we're requiring you to stay. No, we want to facilitate the move.
But
So-
Chair, your concern is valid, because even if we had, beneficiaries in the property, when we get to the point where their existing lease expires, and now Hawaiian Homes is reissuing the rights for that same unit, we not only have to abide by the blood quantum and make sure that they're 50% Hawaiian, we have to work in the order of our Kauai wait list. So someone very well could be, and I don't know if this is the case, but we could have beneficiaries who are currently renting at Waipouli, and they may be on the wait list, but if they're sufficiently down on the wait list, we may never work our way down to them by the time we.
So they may as well be forced to relocate.
They very well may be forced to relocate.
This is my concern,
Yeah.
is when the transaction occurs, when the transfer happens, and DHHL now is the property owner, and you have a non-beneficiary lease expire, I know you're talking about you can extend leases and all of that, but how does DHHL handle that for a beneficiary that's on the list that's saying, hey, I kind of want to move in there?
Yeah.
How's that going to happen? And I want to make sure this is all vetted out so that we don't end up with 57 families without a place to live.
Yeah, and I think that example, if you have a beneficiary who's living there currently and is a 50%er and would be eligible for a Hawaiian Homes award of a lease at the project, they would be treated like all the other Hawaiian Homes beneficiaries, and that mandates that we award these things in the order that they are on our wait list. And it's unfortunate. I understand, we have compassion for the current tenants and the situation that our transaction is putting them into, but our calling is to serve our beneficiaries, and it's the trust obligation to provide rehabilitation and housing for Native Hawaiian beneficiaries as defined by the Act.
But you know, this whole model of relocation works in any other situation, I think, other than when you're dealing with somebody like DHHL, because of the requirements to live there. And that is my biggest concern. How are we gonna get around that legal requirement when you have non-beneficiaries potentially living on DHHL property, and you have beneficiaries on a list that would like to move into that property? How are we going to handle that? How are we gonna handle that? I mean, that's kinda, this is a little different because you
This
got
is-
that blood
yes.
quantum requirement. That is my biggest concern.
Yeah,
Now it's different, and so we're taking longer to work the process. Instead of doing it rapidly in other situations, it's bang, everybody goes right away. This is a much slower process, and that's how it's being adjusted to deal with the adjustment of DHHL. It is adjusting. It's adjusting on a time basis, both because of the market considerations and because of this, because we want to provide enough of a window to make sure everybody is relocated without the blood quantum, boogeyman, so to speak, coming in and
Well,
disrupting.
it's not a boogeyman, it's the law.
Yeah, and
I mean,
Chair,
the blood quantum is not a boogeyman,
You're
it's the
100%,
law. And
100% correct. This is
So,
a new animal for the Hawaiian Homes, where we're acquiring with existing tenants.
So the reason
Yeah.
it's here is because the residents have a lot of questions.
We don't want
How-
anyone to
how would
miss out.
How would that number be determined? If someone right now, I'm not gonna ask what the rents are right now, I don't think that's relevant, but let's just say a rental unit right now is at 2,500, and they find a place that's for 4,500. Are they gonna be, are they gonna get the difference, the $2,000 a month for 42 months?
That's all dependent on what their comparative market analysis shows us. So when we
That
do the
hasn't been done yet. You're
comprehensive,
saying if they go out and on their own, right now, if one of these
it
people.
hasn't been done yet because funding is not secured and in place. So we can't do it until that happens.
So your market analysis will determine what that amount will be?
Yes,
And that market analysis will take it comps in the area, or comps
Yes.
across the state, or comps? Because I noticed in your list you had off-island housing,
Comps
but
up to
like
50
Kauai,
miles.
we don't have many other projects like Waipouli that's out there in the market. So
right.
how does this market analysis done? Is it, you know, it's not like everywhere else, where we have apartments and condos on every street. It's rare. Everything else is vacation rentals that look like Waipouli. Or it's affordable units by the county or by market development that's people not gonna qualify for. So how
Yeah.
is that gonna be done?
So when we do a comparative amount analysis, market analysis, we look at, the first 50 miles. So we try to keep everyone small. Relocation allows us to go up to 50 miles. In the case of last resort housing, if nothing can be found, we can go outside that 50 miles.
You've been on Kauai
But-
before. You've been on Kauai.
Oh,
You've been on Kauai.
I'm sorry?
Have you been
No.
on Kauai before? You can't go 50 miles
my-
either way
come.
from that location. You run out of road.
Right, which
So-
means that we search other islands.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a 50-mile
But we have had
radius.
people in our initial intake interviews. We had staff on site at Waipouli at the Courtyards in August. They were there for almost a week. And they held a meeting. They did interviews. Some people didn't show up for their interviews. We also held virtual interviews after the fact. Some of these folks are telling us, we want to move off island. It's hard to find work here. We want to move back stateside. There were different things. That's why the search was so large.